Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, the regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me this afternoon, we have Sabya, President and Chief Operating Officer of VideoVerse, Barry Broome, President and CEO of the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, and Gary May, Chancellor of UC Davis. We're here to discuss the dynamic nature of the semiconductor industry and its continuous evolution to meet the demands of emerging technologies and market needs. We'll also discuss how Sacramento is becoming a key player in the semiconductor supply chain and UC Davis and its research contributions to the industry. It is great to have everyone with us. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. Barry, I'd like to kick it off with you. What factors have driven Sacramento's employment growth?
Well, we've become the #1 choice for Bay Area relocatees. I mean, when you're attracting 33-year-old educated people with STEM degrees, that's an incredible advantage. LinkedIn has us in the top 3 in attracting technology talent. We've become much more efficient and productive in how we work together and drive our economy. So the backbone of our economy is UC Davis's leadership, Sacramento State, where historically, we've been a relatively quiet, dormant community, happy to be a government town. We made the pivot about 10 years ago, and we're now one of the top 10 performing U.S. markets and job growth, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
And Chancellor May, let's learn more about UC Davis. What areas of semiconductor research are prioritized at UC Davis?
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, I'll say our semiconductor research priorities really align with global communication, sustainability, healthcare, and security imperatives. And these are really at the core of the UC Davis mission to build a more sustainable and equitable world. I think we're tackling these global challenges through research in photonics, secure sensing technologies, and advanced AI-driven imaging systems. And some of the transformative applications for those technologies include Internet of Things, sensor technologies for human safety and health, real-time soil and plant health monitoring, and precision sensors to optimize water usage, as an example. Researchers are also prioritizing critical cybersecurity challenges and developing innovative hardware solutions to safeguard sensitive data. That's just a few examples on the research side.
Yeah, and Sabya, the obvious question that everyone asking is, how is the semiconductor industry addressing the surge when it comes to AI and related chip demand?
Yeah, and one of the biggest constraints for a company like ours, which is really focused on live AI as it applies to media, television, and sports, is the ability for compute. A lot of that is driven by constraints in energy. And for us here, being able to rely on some of the strongest public utilities and universities coming to the table to talk to startups like ourselves and really focusing on how to make sure they meet our needs is not just AI chip demand, but also compute and other factors that play into our scale and being able to compete with some of the largest incumbents in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sabya, let's talk about that a bit more. How is Sacramento positioned to support the growth of AI chips?
Yes, other than just capital, access to talent, universities like UC Davis locally, which are some of the key things that people don't always realize when building a company. For Sacramento, we have one of the greatest public utilities, I think, in the nation, and they're part of the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, where they're working with private partners, which you don't see at that infrastructure level in terms of building the businesses and making sure there's reliability and access to top quality infrastructure for AI chip manufacturing, as well as just AI startups that are looking to grow through scaling compute.
Right. And so, Barry, let's follow on for a moment. Why is Sacramento a competitive semiconductor hub compared to other emerging tech regions?
Yeah, well, we've been Intel's global R&D center since 1980. So the backbone of Intel's innovation has come out of Sacramento for 4 decades. We're now home to Bosch's $1.5 billion investment chips play, silicon carbide chips, which will make zero-emission vehicles, grids, and other clean technologies more efficient and productive. Solidigm's headquarters and R&D's here. Solidigm is the largest division now of SK Hynix and is doing extraordinarily well. But we've also now added Micron's expanding up to 500 people, Qualcomm, Samsung. And what people are finding is we're capturing our higher education talent. Historically, that migrated automatically down to Silicon Valley. Now that people are getting a chance to choose jobs, career, and quality of life of housing in our region, we're doing much better there. And also, the industries are easily relocating people from the Bay Area to Sacramento. We think young people want to live in California. Sometimes the price is a little bit too sharp in Silicon Valley. And now that they can have both their career and their quality of life, a lot of engineering talent is choosing to come to Sacramento to work with these global firms.
Yeah, and that's why, Chancellor May, I'm glad that you're here to bring in the academic perspective, because sometimes we don't think about that in terms of how it's advancing the industry. So how does the Northwest AI Hub enhance UC Davis's leadership in AI and semiconductors?
Joe, we're really excited to be a leader in this emerging AI field. This Northwest AI Hub, which is funded through the CHIPS and Science Act, is just one of 8 microelectronics commons regional innovation hubs that was awarded by the Department of Defense. And we will work with over 40 partner institutions from academia, from government and government laboratories and industry. One of our professors, Ben Yu, was awarded this funding as part of the grant to address large-scale issues in AI at the chip scale. And led by Ben, the Next Generation Networking and Computing Systems Laboratory is at the forefront of research on commercially viable 2D and 3D photonic integration. And applications for that integration and that technology include cognitive networks, navigation systems, improving the internet. I mentioned the Internet of Things earlier, and all of those will be impacted greatly by this award.
Yeah. And Sabya, Barry had mentioned affordability as part of the attraction to Sacramento. What trends in AI advancements create opportunities for economic growth in Sacramento?
And I think a lot of it's driven by hybrid and remote work, but the cost of doing business, hiring, and talent here, while not reducing quality of life for anyone that's working here, is significant to be able to have folks from the Bay, from Seattle, from the East Coast relocate here to be able to have these high paying wages, top quality talent, stay locally. So I think one of the hardest parts is not just building a company here, bringing them here, but really staying here. So I think the growth in the AI industry, driving folks to seek careers in those industries and being able to afford a very high quality of family life here is like the rising tide that lifts all boats for the region, where you're going to have high paying jobs and folks that are setting down roots here that keeps companies stable and being able to scale without having to worry about the high turnover that you see in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, and really have foundational companies built here.
Yeah. Well, Sabya, I also want to address the sustainability issue. What steps are essential to balancing that type of growth, whether it's economic or demographics, with resource sustainability?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a huge issue as we grow. It's that J curve is just starting in terms of how much we don't yet understand the long-term impacts of sustainability and energy impact for AI, whether it's semiconductor manufacturing or data centers. And I think that's going to be a huge concern going forward. So for us here, I think we're in the somewhat early stages, but fast growing in terms of enabling that by having it done early on, which is figuring out what are the energy needs to make sure that we're not overusing in order to make sure that we can sustain that long term.
Yeah, because we saw that happen during the pandemic, where there was that shift from major cities, including New York City, to other areas for whatever reason. Let's call it Southern Florida or Austin. While everyone has, their own reasons for going, we certainly saw the demand that placed on some of the energy resources. So, Barry, let me turn this over to you. How is Sacramento going to be able to support that workforce and ecosystem growth?
Well, first off, Sabya mentioned this. Our main utility is SMUD. It's a municipal utility. Mm-hmm. It's about a third of the price of traditional utility costs in California. It's going to achieve 100% emissions-free platform by 2030. So we're going to be giving affordable, consistent, reliable energy that's also competitive by price, but clean for long-term standards. International companies like semiconductor companies still have big ESG obligations to meet to their boards and institutional investors. So I think that's a big advantage that we have. Secondly, this last 2 years, on average, we build more housing than like Los Angeles, which is 12 million people. So we have about 20,000 acres of entitled land in the region that is eligible for housing construction. And one of the things that has kind of benefited us is we were the agricultural hub for California, the breadbasket. We still are with UC Davis being the world's leader in food and agricultural research. But that big breadbasket also gave us lots and lots of land that was never developed. So the ability to pivot towards putting housing online, both workforce and executive housing, gives us a very unique advantage across the country. Not too many people have 20,000 acres of entitled land for housing. So I think our ability to maintain our power, like Sacramento County can site a semiconductor facility. So our ability to site manufacturing here is still there. Bosch's investment in Roseville Electric's a public power institution. So Bosch was able to get consistent, reliable power. I think Roseville's about 75% emissions free and was able to be in a great town like Roseville, California. So I think the ability to deliver the basics extremely well are becoming increasingly important. Maintaining your quality of life. We're going to have the athletics for 4 years. We have the top performing NBA arena for visitation. Great food scene. We're the farm to fork capital of the United States. So it's just a great place for young people to live. And if we keep the housing and the power and the energy out front and continue to build around great universities like UC Davis, we expect to win into the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Barry, would you say these are those specific advantages that attract companies that are well known around the world? Samsung, Nasdaq listed, Qualcomm, or are these the types of attractions that these global conglomerates are looking for?
Yes, and part of what they're looking for is how do you have a presence in California,
Right.
which is the fifth largest economy in the world, without necessarily meeting all of the challenges that a high-cost Silicon Valley venue creates. And we're Californians, so we're pulling for Silicon Valley, but we offer a unique advantage. So you can get the talent here and get a middle income lifestyle at the same time. And of course, all of those semiconductor companies have ESG objectives. We're the most racially diverse region in the United States. So you can pull from a very diverse skill set. I think 75% of the kids at UC Davis and Sac State come from diverse and underserved backgrounds. So it's really a dream come true for long-term competitiveness for these industries.
Yeah. And Chancellor May, let's talk about some of the partnerships at UC Davis. How does a partnership such as Keysight Technologies, how is that benefiting the program and Keysight as well?
Well, our collaboration with Keysight is really a testament to the power of partnerships for our students and for our faculty researchers. Keysight has funded equipment, monetary donations, and IC fabrication at UC Davis for more than 20 years. And the products they've donated contribute to hands-on projects and education of our students. So those students will become work ready when they're ready to graduate. Currently over 125 UC Davis alumni work at Keysight, with 100 of those in engineering positions. And one of the key focus areas is called terahertz indium phosphide integrated circuits. That's a mouthful, but this work promises to provide more powerful cameras and next generation Wi-Fi for our offices and our homes. And this collaboration has put UC Davis on the map as one of the top 2 groups in the nation for developing that technology, and enabled us to educate and train many graduate students for the local industry.
Yeah, and Chancellor, I want to dive into that a little bit further. Do you see public-private partnerships as a way of advancing the industry and the academics around it? Because at the end of the day, while the technology is one part of the equation, you also have, the energy and the public sectors that you have to work in conjunction with as well. Do you see PPPs as the way to move forward, whether it's in academics or the execution of the technology?
Absolutely. And one of the prime examples of that is our development at Aggie Square, which is a partnership between the city, our university, and the business community. And this is our innovation district on our Sacramento campus, which will open early next year. And that Aggie Square Innovation District brings together students, researchers, industry to commercialize the technology coming out of our laboratories and develop solutions from prototype to market. Some of those focus areas for Aggie Square include digital health, technology, cancer research, neuroscience. That's just the beginning. We expect that partnership in that innovation district will continue to grow over the years as it expands.
Yeah. And Sabya, I'd like to wrap up with this question here. One of the areas that we learned about during the pandemic specifically was, mitigating supply chain risk and some of the vulnerabilities that existed there. How do you see Sacramento playing a role in mitigating some of that risk? Because the demand has only increased for semiconductors, in the past 5 years.
Yeah, and I think there's some great examples of companies here, and with hundreds of millions of dollars of capital flowing in to the region, with companies like ourselves receiving it, companies like Blaze over in El Dorado Hills, they're actually developing hardware and the software for semiconductor chips. And that's not something easy to do for anyone to take on the giants that are going to help overall reduce the constraints on supply chain by coming up with cost-efficient, AI-first driven chipsets that are optimized in order to help subsidize that gap in the supply chain constraints that currently exist to get these high-priced, high-quality chips. And so being able to, one, manufacture, and two, optimize here locally with all the stuff we mentioned, is that cost of capital goes a lot longer here. So companies are able to make big bets on things like manufacturing semiconductor, which usually you need a ton of capital, and in a region that's able to sustain it. So for us, being able to do that here is fairly novel compared to other metros.
All right. Appreciate everyone's insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.